So I think a lot of you guys like to learn how to build your own PC, or would like to learn how to build your own PC, but you're finding that maybe some of the information out there, do a search. We've covered that already. Those are not the answers that you are looking for. You want the answer in front of you. You don't want a bunch of people telling you, okay, that's not the way to do it, blah, blah, blah. You want sound advice. You want to do your own thing. And that's what PC DIY kind of gives you, right? So that's why we've invited 3 experts from the industry to come up and discuss the issues surrounding building your own PC today. It's gotten a whole lot easier, and we want to kind of nurture that feeling so that you can go to a store like NCIX, who's a great sponsor of GOTTACON, go order up your parts and try to build it yourself. And chances are, I think that most of you will be successful using some common sense. Our first guest is from NCIX. Some people know him as the crazy Russian. His name is Ivan. Give it up for Ivan, one of the system integrators at NCIX PC.
I'm glad to see how many people actually turned out to this event, and it's great to see that all of you guys are actually here to, get the truth from the horse's mouth. Wait, did I use that right? I'm sorry,
Yes.
English is my third language. So I think that the PC gaming-related hardware has quite evolved to the point that it became Lego with drivers. But of course, there are still a few nuances that need to be covered, and this is what this panel is for. Thank you, Stephen.
Now, Ivan, can you tell me about the first time you built your PC from the ground up? What kind of things that, knowing what you know today, you would have kind of told yourself, your young self?
I actually, being the chief system integrator, had my first PC built by someone else.
Now, is that a bad thing, though?
Well, the thing was that I have done my research probably for a month. I actually pieced everything together, did my research, but ultimately the challenge for me was what if I put it together and it doesn't work, doesn't turn on, or something is malfunctioning? So for the first build, I actually have trusted an expert. Then I took the machine and I took one part out, put it back in. Does it work? Okay. Took 2 parts out. And then I took it completely apart, put it together, ended up with a bunch of extra parts. Okay. And then I have actually recovered it completely, and that was when I was around 16 or so years old, and I kind of took it from there.
I think a lot of us started that way too. Thank you for sharing that, Ivan. Our next guest is actually all the way from California. He works for a company called NVIDIA, which supports gaming all the way around the world. He is the North American marketing manager or regional manager. His name is Atx Chen. Steve Sun could not join us today, but he is just as awesome, Mr. Atx Chen.
So I have with me a couple of 4 gigabyte USB drives.
Just a few?
Just a few of them. I'm gonna toss these out. So who has never built a PC before, ever? Okay.
Is that yo as in you want one, or yo as in I've never built one?
Oh, you got one. Come on. Come on. Here.
What if you built one and it didn't work?
Yeah, built one didn't work.
Still counts.
Okay, so you get one. You get one. You over there get one.
All the way to the back.
Oh, look at that. Yeah, pass to your friend. Yes. You get
Now,
one. Don't worry, I got more of these.
while you're entertaining the crowd there, Eric, can you tell us about your first total new build, like from the ground up build that you've ever done, and any advice that you would have passed on to yourself, knowing what you know today?
The first successful one, or the first
Unsuccessful or the most memorable one?
Most memorable, probably my first computer from the ground up would be AMD K6 system. And back in those days, you had these little jumpers, these little itty bitty things that you connect, pins to pin, and to overclock it or make it go faster. And it was just a simple memory upgrade, and it was fun. It was like my first, I guess. I was bitten by the bug after upgrading the memory. It's like, okay, what else can I upgrade? Memory, hard drives, the processor, then on. So.
Can you tell us about a time when you did something really, really wrong?
That was before this build. My first computer was an IBM 286. 10 glorious megahertz. Computers are 200 times faster than that today. I was taking it apart, kind of doing the same thing, trying to figure out how to upgrade the memory, and then I wasn't able to put it back together, and my parents got really pissed off at me.
So your megahertz were earned in blood, as Ivan would say.
I guess so.
Thanks, Eric. And the other Eric that we have here is actually someone that works very closely with me. He's the senior hardware editor at Futurelooks.com, which is one of the last couple standing Canadian-based PC hardware, computer hardware websites, because I think there's only 2 of us left, right?
You and Hardware Canucks?
Pretty much, huh? Yeah, it's just us and them. Everyone else is US-based, so remember that. But he's also US-based, and we love him to death. Ladies and gentlemen, Senior Hardware Editor, Eric Garay. Now, Eric, you probably have some really good stories from way back when about your first build.
Some of you might have heard of Virtual Hideout way back. They used to cut up cases and mod them. That's where I started. So I broke a lot of cases just learning how to use a Dremel. They were all cheap ones. And I think my first one was, it was a K6 too, or actually no. It was I had a slot A, the T-Bird. Yeah, T-Bird.
T-Bird.
With the gold finger so you could overclock it, and I had no idea what overclocking was. I just sat there and flicked the switches while the machine was on.
Yeah.
But it still worked. I don't know, it'd reboot, blue screen, and then reboot, and then it worked fine. So that was the first one I built. My first video card was a TNT2 Ultra. Those were like the old school days, but yeah.
I still have my 1 gigahertz system fully operational, Windows 95, 1 gigahertz Orion, GeForce 256, 40 gig hard drive. It's in my collection.
When I bought my first sticker RAM, it was $1 a gig, or $1 a meg, so 256 megabyte was $256. I was a baller then.
Is that an AGP system?
What was that?
AGP system with the
Yeah.
I might have a graphics card for you for that. You can upgrade that one.
First generation AGP. I broke it.
Now, when I'm speaking only for myself, and maybe you guys share this feeling, but when I first built my first system, or rather, when I started kind of tinkering with PC hardware, and I started with a pre-built system as well. Mine was a, what the heck was it? A Packard Bell that looked like the Starship Enterprise. Maybe some of you guys remember that. They sold it at London Drugs. Anyhow, I tore that thing apart and I rebuilt it. But the feeling I got from just doing that was both, fear, but also excitement. And then at the end, when everything worked, I was so elated and I was so excited that I had something that I rebuilt myself that worked properly. And as I went along and upgraded the video memory from 256 kilobytes to 512, stuff like that, every step that I took made me ready to build my own PC. And I think that some of you guys out there, have any of you guys actually just upgraded one single part in the PC? One that you did not build? It felt good, didn't it? It worked, right? It's awesome, right? So we're going to kind of cover things that have to do with starting out, building it from scratch. And I think that's the next step for a lot of people. And at the end, we're going to cover some more in-depth things. So if you guys have already built PCs before, you guys know your way around a PC, then we're going to have a chance for you guys to ask questions of the panel so that you guys get something out of it as well too. And of course, we got a lot of great prizes from sponsors such as Gigabyte. We've got a motherboard here, Z87 series motherboard for your next build. We also have these fantastic rocker mats from InWin.
These are sweet.
Limited edition.
Yep. Very
limited edition.
$39.99 retail. They are the company that supplied all of the towers for our tournament PCs this year, so thank you, InWin, thank you, Atx, for building them. And of course, NVIDIA also donated those graphics cards. They're inside. So, a lot of help, a lot of effort went into that. Now,
what I was going to say? Also, if you guys are like upgrading a part and you want to ask like some advice, go for it. Don't be afraid.
Yeah, we're at the booth at the end there, so you can find us anytime. The first thing that a lot of people need to kind of figure out before they even lift a screwdriver, even go shopping, is to figure out what form factor they want to build in, because that kind of dictates all of the components, the size, the power, everything from beginning to end. But let's go over quickly what form factor is. Form factor is basically the size of the motherboard in the most basic terms. So you have mini ITX that are in many of the small systems. You have ATX, which is basically this size right here. And we also have micro ATX, which is somewhere in between. So if you're building a really high performance LAN party system that you want to put in your backpack potentially, you want to build a mini ITX. If you want to build MATX, you can get a moderately reasonable sized system that can still upgrade very easily. And then that's ATX. That's the larger size motherboard there. So that's good. That's standard workstation
and
size.
ATX is about there. in a ITX, stop by the
Yeah.
booth, you can see it's much smaller.
So, what are your guys' opinions about form factors right now? Because I know the trend right now is mini ITX. Let's start with Ivan over there.
Well, seeing how the modern processors have decreased in power consumption and performance per watt very, very significantly, and the latest generation graphics cards from GeForce specifically have been very well optimized for power consumption, it is entirely possible to build a system about this tall and this long that actually has one of the fastest graphics cards available. Like the gaming systems used at the event are actually equipped with the GeForce GTX 780 Ti, which is the second fastest as of 2 days ago when the Titan Black was released, gaming card on the market. And you actually can build a system with the most powerful GeForce graphics cards in an ITX form factor. The main limitation when actually building a super compact system is you will not be able to run dual graphics cards, and your expansion options for hard drives, for example, might be limited. But then again, do you really need anything more than one SSD and one hard drive? Especially hard drives are available up to 4 terabytes now. SSDs go up to 1. And plus there's always network attached storage as well as external hard drives. So that seems to be the future from what I've seen from our customer base. That's my opinion.
So unless you need extra expansion, mini ITX is really the way to go because it pretty much gives you an all-round system in a really tiny footprint that sits on top of your desk, in your backpack, potentially if you build one of the smaller systems, right?
That's right. And the other thing I have to note is usually when the motherboard is smaller, it's kind of expected the functionality is going to be trimmed. Now, what actually happens these days is some of the compact motherboards are more decked out than mid-range full-size boards, because that's the mantra that all of the major manufacturers are following, because they realize that smaller is better is the future. So what they do is like, okay, how can we bring full feature set into that compact small factor that everybody is switching to? And some of the motherboards, such as the latest ASUS offerings, like these things are more decked out than mid-range boards, straight up. There is nothing has been compromised.
It used to be a misconception, like if it's a smaller motherboard, a smaller system, that you'd be sacrificing something to, for your gaming performance. But that's not entirely the case at all, actually. These days you can do a very comparable system, spend about $500 even, and then make a good system that can run most of your games at high settings at 1080p. And with one graphics card is usually enough, because today graphics technology has just taken off like crazy. For example, like the 750 Ti that you mentioned, these are cards are on the new Maxwell architecture. They run at under 60 watts TDP, which means you don't need a very large power supply to drive the whole thing. But secondly, it also means there's not much heat that's being output that's from the wasted power. So you don't have to worry so much about the air cooling or the ventilation of the system.
To put things in perspective, the new generation Maxwells, at load, they consume as much power as older generation cards at idle.
Yeah, and also, has anyone ever run like a GTX 480 before? You guys, okay.
I can't hear you over the sound.
Yeah, I can hear you over the sound. No, the funny thing is, like that graphics card a couple of years ago, was the top of its class, right? Today, a 750 Ti has the same performance as that 480. And it has a third of the power profile. So
probably more like a quarter.
I kind of missed my 480 and all that heat. It was kicking out the back. I could put my feet there on the winter nights. And
oh yeah,
Fry your eggs.
functional PC.
They know. Yeah, those things are.
It seems like mid-range, high-range are mostly dual slot now. Almost all dual slots. Will we see a return to single slot computers?
I think I've seen some board partners try to do a single slot card. But it's been difficult for them. But I think with this new generation of cards, we'll see that come back.
And the other thing to note is pretty much all ITX cases that are worth your money, they will have at least a dual slot card, if not triple slot PCI expansion, so you can fit anything that you want in there. So
there's also the idea of doing water cooled on that that card. Take off the stock cooler, put a water cool block on it. That's only going to be a single slot there. But then you got to worry about that water reservoir and also that radiator. Where do you put that? So in those situations, you might want to look at an ATX-sized motherboard and also ATX-sized case.
So, yeah, ITX. I've seen ITX boards overclock quite well. So I know they're not base entry anymore. They're not the cheap boards you used to think they could be. Just because they're small doesn't mean they're not going to perform. They actually perform quite well. I like the response time on them. I love plugging an SSD into one and watching that thing just boot up so quick. You take a small one I take them to the LAN parties at the college, and everybody comes in with these massive boxes. I come into this cute little box, and I set it down, and I boot up quicker than everybody else. And they've got 3 video cards, and they don't understand why. But it's just sometimes that smaller footprint, you can get more out of it. Everything you want from it, the response, the graphics, the boot times, all the important stuff you're looking for.
At the same time, if you actually do get the larger case, larger form factor, you can do dual, maybe triple graphics. And sometimes it is a necessary solution. For example, what if you run a 1440p monitor or even a surround monitor setup? These are pretty inexpensive these days. But at some point, you start being tapped out on the graphics power. Yeah. And then you either have to get a dual GPU solution, so one graphics card with 2 processors on it, or you have to go SLI, because once you get up here, the only way to get higher is going dual card. And this is when a standard size system with an ATX or even M-ATX motherboard, it becomes a necessity, because even the smaller boards these days, they are designed around the whole idea as hey, everything is integrated, it has awesome sound, kick-ass network, everything you need, and the main reason you would get it is you can actually have a dual card system with a mid-size board, M-ATX, even smaller than this.
Now, do any of you feel that any of these different form factors are easier to build than any of the others? Are there any things that our builders out here need to know when approaching any of these builds?
I built a mini Atx system 2 weeks ago for a different LAN, actually, and I found it more difficult, to be honest, because you're working in a very small, confined space, and so if you're going to be building those systems, get ready to bring some magnifying glasses and some long magnetic screwdrivers to pull some things out when they fall and don't go into place. I think it takes a little bit more time and patience to get that mini Atx out and ready, but when it's done, you feel a good sense of accomplishment.
That's right, and you only need to actually struggle once. But then the end result is so worth it, because of course it's much easier to build in a behemoth, but the ITX one, it's something that you do invest more effort into it, but then you get more for more out of that effort that you exerted into both building it as well as calculating what kind of parts will actually go there in order to make sure the system runs cool and is well ventilated and is not underpowered. So I would say the ITX also kind of creates a new paradigm of hey, you need to account for a few more different things as opposed to just a large system, because there is fewer room for mistakes when you're designing and building an ITX machine.
And places to hide your cables, routing them around. That was my main frustration. How did I bend this large, 12-pin connector?
When they're a demo system, you got to make the cable management's important. Nobody wants to look inside and see spaghetti.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, ITX, it's a little more of a struggle. And I built the one I have now. I built it, and I didn't put the RAM on it ahead of time. I thought I could get it in there, so I've mounted the board, and I realized I couldn't quite get the RAM in, so I had to take the board back out. But it looked good once it's done.
This sounds like a really great. I see a lot of couples out here, and if you have a significant other with smaller fingers, this might be that project that you can build together yourself. Because of the struggles, because we have bigger fingers, right? If someone with smaller fingers can come over and help out, I would be so happy, because I tore up my fingers building my first mini ITX system. That's great, guys. Now, the next step, of course, is now that you've figured out the form factor, now that you've got you've picked out the case that matches your personality or whatever. We have to pick a CPU and a GPU, right? Is there anything that we need to know about picking a CPU? Like, why would we pick an AMD or an Intel or a 4-core or a 6-core over any of the others?
Well, ultimately, I would say the most important thing when designing your own system is balance. You don't want to be overpowered on the processor side and be underpowered on the GPU, because ultimately your frame rates will be the only number that will count in the end. And there are lots of system integrators out there who are like, oh, here's i7, 16 gigs of RAM, GT240. And then they call it a gaming PC, but the reality is it's not a balanced approach, because, hey, everybody knows that i7 is good, and 16 gigs is a lot, so it's got to be good. But it's not as easy to distinguish which card is good. So I think NVIDIA has done a good effort with it by labeling all of their systems all of their cards that are actually gaming worthy, GTX specifically. So if you get one of those, and you can simply base your choice on, okay, here's how much money I have to spend on the graphics card. So long as it's GTX, it's not going to suck.
Yeah. It comes down to genre and resolution. Like, how many of you play on a 1080 monitor? All right.
That's pretty much
So I find, personally, a GTX 760 is just that sweet spot if you're looking for the best bang for buck, because you can play 1080 just fine. It's a gaming PC. I'm not going to be doing any transcoding, no video editing or anything, so 8 gigs of RAM is plenty. You don't have to spend too much on that. Your power supply can still be a 650 and at 80 plus bronze or something. You'd order from the NCIX, of course, but they have lots to pick from. But the point is, you don't have to spend a lot on a power supply to feed the graphics. So if your games are like StarCraft, I mean, you can pretty much play that one on lower end cards, but on a 760, that's the sweet spot for just about anything you're going to play on. So that's kind of how I gauge it. Resolution for your GTX size.
Yeah.
Now, does everyone need a discrete graphics card, or is internal graphics on the CPU okay?
I will not dignify that with an answer.
There we go.
But let's just say, for example, we just started out, we built our PC, we got our memory, we got our CPU, I can't afford the GPU. Can we get by for now?
Well, you will be...
What do we lose?
Okay, we can look at it as this angle. So, you are going to a Subway and ordering yourself for like a cold cut sandwich, right? So you get that for now. Then you get promoted and you order filet mignon. Okay, so dedicated card is actually like the something that you're setting yourself for a treat up. But the idea is that if you're building a gaming PC, then why do you want to buy a car with an underpowered engine? I think in my personal experience, what I did is I waited for an extra month, saved up some more money, so when I get it, like, this is the machine that's going to blow me away, because you only live once and you only game once. That doesn't mean that you need to like blow all your money on a gaming PC, but when you do it right the first time, because then
no buyer's remorse when you're done. You're not kicking yourself for buying a lower end GPU.
that too. And ultimately, hey, you want to get it to game, not to like cringe and then run out the next day and get a dedicated graphics card. That is not to say that the modern day onboard graphics, well, they're not even onboard anymore, they're in the processor, they're adequate. But then again, most of the features are not supported. You cannot run the latest level of DirectX, and so on and so forth. So it will be okay if you are okay with playing at 720p on low to medium. Why do that to yourself?
And we're not okay with that, are we?
It goes back to this idea of balance, I think. You got to really look at what are your usage scenarios, like what games are you playing, and then what are the minimum specifications for that, and I would say go above those minimum specifications.
Yeah. So, like, not all games have to have 4-core, 8-thread processors, the $340. You can, I see plenty of systems being built with like 4-core, a 3570 or something, one of the K processors, something's unlocked, and they're able to play everything just fine and still have enough CPU resource to do other things.
Yeah, there are a lot of review sites that do like benchmarks on gaming, and they most of them find that you don't need more than 3 cores at any given time.
At this point, BF4, the new Frostbite engine, is the only engine out there that's kind of aware of multiple cores that can effectively use more than 4. But there's the other paradigm that needs to be considered when designing a system. Are you going from the angle, hey, I'm going to get something at sweet spot right now and upgrade a couple of years later, or should I get something that I will not need upgrading? So you invest more and your system has a longer lifespan. But here's the thing, even if you get more raw horsepower, that will be theoretically as powerful as next generation, but it will not have the same features. So the next level of DirectX will not be supported no matter how much raw firepower you throw at it. So for example, previous generation like GTX 200 series, you cannot teach it the new DirectX. So some of the features will be simply non-existent in games. But the other things are stuff like support for the on-the-fly encoding of your live stream that's integrated into the GeForce experience. Because right now, if you want to stream, you kind of need to have a powerful i7 CPU, because 4 of the cores are on the game, the rest are encoding the stream, or if you want to record yourself playing. Well, what the new GeForces have done is they can actually do the encoding for you with an impact of 3 to 6% of frame rate, around that.
Even that.
Yeah, so you can't even tell that you're actually streaming or encoding, and you can get away with an i5 class processor so long as you have a modern day graphics card that will do the other typical thing, because the only other typical usage scenario for a gamer that may require extra CPU power is streaming or recording your own gameplay.
That's very fair. That's very fair. I know a lot of you guys Twitch, on Twitch, or have your own streaming channel, and that's one thing to consider. I mean, graphics cards have actually gotten so powerful that, yeah, they do a lot of the heavy lifting, and that helps you out with your budget as well, too, because now you can buy a better graphics card and game better, even though you save a little bit of money on the CPU. That's great. Now, moving on to actually constructing the system, there's a lot of talk about integrated all-in-one water cooling systems versus air cooling. Depending on the form factor, I think one type of system will be easier to implement than the other. But what's the main difference, and what are your feelings on the advantages of each type?
Well, from my interaction with our customer base, I know that some of our customers will simply not have anything liquid in their system. They don't care. They're just like liquid and electronics, no. Now, this was because, well, it's liquid, so it might have a chance of leaking, which does occasionally happen. But here's the thing. All of the vendors that NCX carries, if anything leaks inside of the system and kills other components, they will reimburse you, because they are working together with us to ensure that this whole idea that, oh, if you put liquid cooler and it leaks and it's going to kill my stuff, that they want to actually have it to be a thing of the past. Because the advantages of all-in-one liquid cooling systems is because, well, first of all, they're very easy to install. Second of all, they leave much more empty space inside of the chassis, improving the airflow. And third of all, they're usually lighter than humongous air cooling towers for comparable performance. And plus, your build looks much cleaner because you just have this one little pump going out the radiator, and it just looks deluxe.
My favorite feature, you missed it. They're quiet. Most of the time, I love how quiet those all-in-ones are. Half the time I don't know they're going. If I hit the power button, I lean over to the machine to make sure something's spinning, because that's what I'm used to. But the all-in-one, the CPU, when it's doing something, playing a game or rendering something, it's so quiet.
Well, the same can be said about equivalently priced high-end air coolers.
Yep.
So ultimately, you have to go like, hey, here, I'm going to get a big honking tower, or I can get a quality, compact, all-in-one cooler, which is a much more refined solution, and have that. But some people will not be swayed, and hey, some people just like. See, when I actually met Linus for the first time in my life, we started discussing liquid cooling versus air cooling, and he's like, oh, well, ultimately we can discuss all we want, but we all know that liquid cooling will always be better than air cooling just because of the heat conductivity. And I went like, well, you can call me Jordan because I'm all air. And then he officially forbid me to ever make jokes in English language. And then how's that working out?
Now that's mainly for liquid cooling and air cooling. That's more, people associate that with a CPU. Now, Eric, can you comment on the people that want to water cool or their GPUs? Is there any merit? Is there any benefit to actually doing that?
Oh, there's definitely a benefit, because actually the GPU is probably, if not the hottest, the second hottest thing that's running in your PC. So you definitely want to do a secondary loop and then send that back to the reservoir. I would say that there are definite advantages to thermals, like Eric said. Whenever I'm running on water cool, I see the temperature drop down much quicker whenever the load is gone, and I'm back down to nominal temperature much faster. I would say the only disadvantage would be when you're moving to go to your friend's LAN party or somewhere else. Moving that system is much heavier than a normal air-cooled system.
Yeah, custom water cooling systems. You're adding a radiator, you're adding reservoir. Those get a little bit heavy. So I don't know if anybody here has anybody here built a custom water cooled system yet? They got one?
We got one guy.
Now, honestly, how long did it take you?
Yeah.
So there's some disadvantages to all custom loops. They're great when you get them built. I mean, they cool quite well, but time consuming. If you're not experienced or taking your time, you might get a little too fast. Or if you haven't done it before, there's a lot of directions. There's a lot of caveats before you get to your finished product. So the all-in-ones, that's why I like some of the all-in-ones so well, because you pretty much mount them inside your case in existing holes and add your fans. I mean,
Yeah, and check this out. Some of the all-in-one liquid cooling manufacturers, such as NZXT, they have created a bracket that enables you to take the CPU all-in-one cooler and adapt it to your graphics card, so you don't even have to build a full loop anymore. And we have recently created a system, and that guy right over there built it. And it uses the same cooler on the graphics card as it uses on the processor, and the temperatures were like around, what, like 60 degrees under load?
what? On what card?
On the GTX 770, 37 degrees under load, how like that. And the all-in-one cooler together with the adapter came up to around maybe 130, 140 bucks, as opposed to building custom loop that will be at least double that amount. Of course, the custom loop will ultimately be better, but then again, here's what happens. If you build it yourself and anything breaks and it leaks, you're on your own. Whereas if you install it on the graphics card and anything happens, the manufacturer will still uphold the whole idea that, hey, my stuff leaked, I'll reimburse you.
He's over there going like, dope. No, but it still looks cool though.
Now, getting back down to covering off, helping people kind of get their feet wet. Oh, we just talked about liquid, haha. Getting people's feet wet and building. Are there any tips that you want to pass along, or any myths that you want to dispel about handling components, about applying heat sink paste? Like, are there any of your own tips and things that you found that really are non-issues? Like, I know that Ivan, you told me about the static straps. You haven't used one in years.
Yes, because I used to actually, when I actually started building my own stuff, like over a decade ago, I was like, oh yeah, you need to ground yourself, and had one of those mats, and a wooden table, and just follow all the procedures.
All the wires hanging off you, so you're grounded like a Terminator.
Well, yeah, in Soviet Russia, terminates you, So, but thank you. Okay, but then at some point I realized, okay, well, basically, simple mantra: don't derp. So it's as simple as, well, you put the system on the table. Don't be wearing anti-static clothing. Just like, even if it is on your body, just don't make sure that clothing itself doesn't touch any of the components. And I made it pretty much at this point, it's an instinct. Before I reach into the system or touch anything, I touch the inside of the case. And that discharges the electrostatic electricity, and it's that. And I have never killed a component just by zapping it, ever. It just doesn't happen. And yes, of course, if you want to be super paranoid, yeah, you may want to do it, but why bother?
That doesn't mean wear like fuzzy, bunny slippers and your pajamas to do it. I wouldn't do it that. I typically just wear shoes and what I'm wearing here. But yeah, I ground occasionally, just every so often. You're moving around a lot. Sometimes I'll touch the case just to ground, but I'm not paranoid about it.
How about you, Eric?
I think my tip would be, because I'm guilty of doing this all the time, is whenever you buy new components, motherboard, graphics card, power supply, whatever, there's this piece of paper inside that box called a manual. Make sure you read that manual.
You mean the manufacturer's opinion?
Exactly, the manufacturer's opinion. You definitely want to read that, because I've made many mistakes where I said, oh, I know what I'm doing. I'm confident in building a motherboard. I've done so many times before, and then the pins in the wrong place, or maybe, I don't know, the headers in the wrong place, and then like I turn it on, boom, dead. And I embarrass myself. So do yourself a favor, spend an extra 30 hour to read that manual and get a sense of like where everything is on that motherboard, how to plug things in the right way.
And take your time, because remember, you're building your own machine. As a gamer, your machine is the extension of you. No two systems are alike. So it is ultimately a labor of love.
Yeah.
Okay, how many of you have a name for your system?
Don't yeah, they got names.
Yeah. Let's hear these names. I want to hear these names.
Yeah, go ahead.
What's your system's name?
Entanglement.
He needs wire management.
You mean like that Disney movie?
I know, like quantum entanglement.
Okay. So not Rapunzel. No. Okay.
Hey, I saw. Say it again.
Something slacker hacker?
So very functional names.
Functional names.
Functional names. I'm worried about that third one.
By the way, that
Turn your
guy's
Wi-Fi off.
grandmother, she is in top 100 Unreal Tournament original players in Canada.
Wow.
Let's give it up for the Uber grandma.
Yeah.
You mean she beats you, dude?
She raised you to be a
Wow.
gamer. Awesome.
That's an epic scarf too.
All right, one more name. Somebody in the back said they had one. Go ahead. One more. Who else had a name for their system?
What's that name?
What's the name?
G?
Her name.
Her name. Her name.
Now, that's an important thing to emphasize because all of my machines actually have a female name. The reason is because, well, high maintenance, Ficklish. Oh, I'm too hot. I'm too cold. Oh, I need some attention. I don't know how I feel about this, but ultimately, when you take the time and you give her what she wants, ultimately you'll be rewarded with so much eye candy and performance and anything that you want.
In her defense, mine's had male names, and there's always a random blue screen. When I first started out, I don't know if there's a correlation between that, but.
Do you ever talk to him?
No. No.
Well, actually, Mr. Wingman, wherever he is, he won't let me lie. One time, I actually managed to stabilize a high-end system just by talking to it. And we came up with the expression, the gigahertz whisperer. Yeah, because sometimes you look at the system, like any good technician who is really into what he does, he will have those little things that he would never do when he builds a system, such as posting them for the first time with a hood on. You never do it. You always take the hood off. I don't know why, but it's just one of those superstitions, so to speak. And with a machine, it's a custom device that is composed of multiple of components, and sometimes if one little thing goes wrong, it actually might affect it. So whenever troubleshooting, it's very important to never be mad at the machine, because this is your own creation. And one of the things that I like about computers, which I think makes them better than people in that regard, is their solutions to their problem is always logical.
So true.
CPU coolers, if I was to give any advice about taking your time with one component, when you mount your CPU cooler, when you set it on top after you've installed your brackets, made sure they're not wiggling, they're loose. When you set your CPU on top, see how it sits. Make sure it just sits flat. And if you're not quite sure, take the time to loosen it back off and see where the paste is set, centered, or where it's not settling. Then you know what you need to look for. That's probably the only thing now that I see that.
Yeah, and also remember to remove the protective film from the bottom of the CPU. Hey, it only happened once, okay?
It only happened once.
Read the manual.
Once is enough.
I did.
Eric, how about you?
Sorry, what was the question?
Any last minute advice that you want to give these guys?
Last minute advice. I think we're still.
I think we're going to get questions next.
Yeah, we're doing the questions.
Jury's still on how do you best put the thermal paste on. Do you guys like the P method, or do you like the spreading out?
I'm the P method myself because I'm cheap.
Since I'm paranoid, I do like 5 Ps.
Oh, wow.
A
little more.
Yeah, that way it's going to get all the corners and the center at the same time.
Okay.
Because not all CPU coolers have the same the bottom. Some are convex, some are a little more flat than others, so you take your time and see how that lays.
Evan?
I spread it.
All right.
The spreader.
That came out wrong.
With a credit card.
There you go. Yeah, I looked to see which surface is smaller between the two. If it's the cooler that's smaller, or if it's the CPU is taller, and I'd spread as well. I twist it back on and hopefully squeeze that extra gunk off the way.
But most importantly, put some on and remove the sticker.
Also, I just realized I think we may have omitted an important part. When you liquid cool your graphics card, whether with an all-in-one solution or with a custom loop, what happens is the modern graphics cards, such as the GeForce GTX, they have a self-overclocking mechanism, which is based entirely of how cool am I running. So when we were doing one of the builds, which are actually showcased in our booth, the card clocked itself from 980 to 1334 without any manual overclocking involved. Because there is a mechanism built into, I know that GeForce GTX actually has that mechanism and it works
GPU
perfectly.
boost.
And what happens is it just throttled itself all the way. It was the only 4 megahertz short of being lit. 1, 3, 3, 4. So, and that's one of the advantages too. Like if you don't really want to tweak your graphics card, I mean, most of the people who will put a liquid cooling loop on it would. But the advantage, the fact remains that even if you don't do it, for example, if you don't want to void the warranty, it will just clock itself up to the point that it will be like noticeable performance gain. Because if you clock it like 5, 10% more, okay, you don't notice the difference. But 20, 30, you will see actual FPS difference.
Is there any other advice that you guys want to give them before we turn the questions over to the audience?
All right, give them the questions. I'm curious.
Okay.
Do your research.
Let's get some questions out here. That gentleman right there.
All right, so my question has to do with dust building up inside your PC. Does that actually cause physical harm to your PC, or is that just like an overheating issue? And how often should you clean out your PC from dust?
That's a great
See,
question.
I'm pretty paranoid about that one. I clean mine out like at least every 6 months. Canned air works probably best. I just take the side off, I take it outside and just blow it all out. But other than that, that's kind of really all I do. If I have a custom water cooling loop in it, that's when I check to see how things are running, check levels. It's kind of like a car. If it's an all-in-one, I just close it back up, wipe it down, and plug it in.
One of the suggestions that I will give is if you have positive air pressure, as in more air blowing into the case than coming out, that will prevent the dust being sucked in from different like slots and holes. So you will only have to address the dust settling on where the fan intakes are. And it actually makes it easier to clean. Plus, the temperatures are usually better with positive air pressure, simply because there are no heat pockets.
And I love fan filters, don't you?
Yeah, there's a couple cases actually have like a good mesh, where the fan can suck the air in and kind of keep that dust out at the same time.
Right. So yeah.
Let's get another question here. This is a safe place. This is the only place you can ask questions, and we won't call you a noob. All right?
Because we're all noobs.
Yes, sir.
Hey, I do a lot of 1080p recording of my my gaming experiences with my wife, and I wanted to know which components are more important when doing renders for 1080p gaming videos. Is it the CPU or is it the GPU?
Depends on what graphics card you run. If it's a recent GeForce, it will have that supports.
Yeah, that supports. Yeah, Shadowplay will work on that.
So you should install Shadowplay, and that what will happen. It will offload the encoding onto the graphics card itself.
Nice shirt.
There was also
that
another
question.
gentleman over there.
Yes, sir. Can you pop over here and let's listen to your question?
I was just wondering, I've always used laptops, I've just mostly bought them, and I was wondering how much it would cost to make a decent gaming PC to run some of the newer games at around high settings.
I've put some together like for $850 with a GTX 760.
We have some build guides on GeForce.com that show you how to build one for $500. Not including the monitor though. Maybe you already have one.
Or the operating system. For me, I would say that a sweet spot is usually, I know many people have extra copies of Windows laying around.
What are you talking about?
But that's something that should be included as a hardware component, because for me, like I have to do it because I'm a system integrator, but for me, I have not ever pirated Windows because it's just not worth it in the sense that if you have a legitimate version, then you are guaranteed constant updates, extra features such as, for example, Microsoft provides a free antivirus that actually works better than some of the paid-for solutions. And for me, like that was just worth it alone because you need an antivirus, so you could actually be getting a free one, in which case you get what you paid for. Or you can get something that's actually rolled into the package. And plus, Microsoft is known for doing all kind of sneak updates that will suddenly deactivate your Windows like a year later, because like they realize that somebody have cracked it. Of course, there is the Steam OS coming out that's going to be open source, and it's going to be it's the operating system. In case some of you guys don't know, that Valve, who actually runs Steam, have designed specifically for gaming applications. So if you are a Steam gamer, which most of the people are, it's pretty much like a operating system based around Steam. And you can download and install it free of charge, and it will work. And right now, it only works with GeForce graphics cards.
So, just curious, what laptop do you have now? Alienware, old school. So, yeah. So, but a good gaming one. Yeah. What you said was on Tom's. You see him for the gaming or for a desktop. Just a quick build.
GeForce.com. There's a couple of different build guides on how do you make,
So check it out. You can get, that's actually pretty good. You can do some research there and see what kind of parts you want to use.
Or you can go to ncxpc.com. We have a bunch of pre-configured systems that you can take a look at and be like, hey, maybe this is for me, maybe this is for me. And then you can customize one of them, or you can just drop us an email and be like, hey, I have this much money. What is the best deal for me? And our PC advisory team is non-commissions. We don't peddle anything.
And I think up to a certain point, a desktop system is still going to be, for half the price, it's still going to be more powerful than most notebooks. That's as a general rule.
But
right?
a notebook does include a screen.
That's true. Yeah.
But the screen is also
has the keyboard you want to play on, the mouse that you want to use, the perfect.
I've seen the 1080 monitors for like $150. You know, some decent ones too. So, I'm surprised.
So you pay for the portability, but you know you can get more bang for the buck out of a build, right?
And if portability is important, just get an ITX system, because you can literally like have everything strapped to your back.
That is true.
So there you go.
That's true. Any other questions from the crowd? I gave you something already, didn't I?
He's inquisitive.
Who's got another question?
Ask.
Why not?
Okay, fine. Just a quick one, and then we'll take the other one. I see you. I see you guys.
I want to know how important graphics memory is, because I've noticed some cheaper cards you can get more graphics memory. It's just a question because I have no idea.
Depends. I mean, if you're running multi-display and doing like surround, then maybe you might tap a little bit of that, GPU frame buffer. But if you're only doing one 1080p monitor, it usually
it's kind of confusing because sometimes you'll have a card that's like 3 gigs of graphics power, and then you'll have a card that costs like $300 more, and it's only like 1.5 gigs of memory. Like
The same concept applies as to balancing the system. So what they do is like, hey, here is the cheap graphics processor, but lots of RAM to make the card look better. Problem is, the ultimate measurement of the performance is the frame rate. And then, okay, well, also the other thing is that even though there's more of this RAM, if you look at the specs, I guarantee you it's much slower. So it's more of worse RAM, that's right. And as Mr. Chen here said, that if you do have multiple monitors, you do want extra frame buffer. But here's the thing, if you run multiple monitors, you also need a powerful graphics processor. So just throwing more video memory is not really going to cut it, because you're not only going to run out of RAM, you're going to run out of a graphics processing power.
And your question, sir.
So you guys were talking about like ITX builds and saying that you could get something really powerful like a 780 Ti in there. If I was going to do that, would I open myself up to cooling worries? Like, I'm used to these giant heat sinks in order to push air through. So how do you manage cooling in a smaller build with lots of
A lot of ITX cases have plenty of venting on the side now, so the air does get in there. Some of them also have like a 140 millimeter fan on the inside or 120, and it's such a small space that air is moving a lot faster. So
we have actually just released a liquid-cooled ATX system. Yeah, they evolved to the point that since everything is much more compact and more energy efficient, you don't have to have honking huge air coolers. And again, thanks to the all-in-one liquid coolers, you can actually have an overclocked processor in an ITX build with no heating issues. Now, of course, you also need to be cognizant of, hey, so here's my graphics card. Is it going to blow air out, or is it going to vent some of the air in? In that case, you add a couple of extra fans. And then again, you calculate, you think about, okay, how much air is going in, how much air is going out. Usually you want to have more coming in, and no problem.
Yeah, there's many different types of graphics cards designed by the board partners like MSI, ASUS, Gigabyte. They all have their own references. They have their own design, which it may be different from the reference design that NVIDIA creates. And NVIDIA creates a expeller design, meaning it doesn't really depend on what's adjacent to that card. Whereas so for a small form factor system, that might be ideal for your case. But for like a larger case that has more airflow, you might want to look into these non-reference designs that have like their own specialized cooling.
Answer your question? Totally. Excellent. Now we have a question down here. Yes, sir.
I'm a complete computer noob. What is overclocking? What can it do for me? What are some of the risks associated with it?
This is a gigahertz question.
More gigahertz. Oh, yeah. So basically, pretty much every single component in your system can be run beyond spec. So what happens is it's similar to turbocharging an engine. Right, so you tweak it, you provide extra cooling for it, in return you get extra performance. But of course, if you push it too hard, you push it over the mechanical or electrical threshold, it will start deteriorating. So even if it doesn't run too hot because you have a humongous cooler on it, but if you push too much electricity through it, after 3 years, the processor might destabilize. So for every processor, for every graphics card, there's a threshold which it is pretty safe to push it to. So it might actually be unstable-ish at some point, but it will not deteriorate. Now, of course, there's a danger zone for people who are extreme tweakers. They will clock the snot out of a card just to set a world record, and then the card is usually dead after that. Right? So there's always practical overclocking, and most of the components and graphics cards usually have around 20-ish% of overhead that with a few tweaks you can actually eke out. And the GeForce Experience actually has a built-in facility. If you want to just experiment with it, it has a couple of sliders, and it does the work for you. I don't get paid to promote NVIDIA products, it just works.
I was going to say, for overclocking, if you pick a decent board, a good motherboard, a lot of them come with preset overclocks, and I know it's not all as glamorous as the elitists do their overclock, tweaking everything, but you can just pick a setting like a 20%, a 40% overclock, and it'll run stable. As long as you got a decent cooler on there that won't get too hot, you'll be surprised at what you can get out of that.
Yeah, each board manufacturer has their own name for this thing. Like Asus has like an ROG level up.
Asus
like
ROG
MSI has like a one button.
The OC Genie on the MSI. Gigabytes. I mean, the new EasyTune, it has options on their software. You can do it in Windows or through the BIOS, but there's a real easy to figure out. Some of their boards, like this one here, if you decide to get really elite, I mean, they have onboard buttons that you just engage and just start overclocking, adding voltage, overclocking. I mean, you can go crazy. Yeah. But that's beginners, just use the presets. You'll be surprised.
That's right, and that's an enthusiast level product. Again, only people who actually want to push their hardware for a reason of setting some kind of benchmark need stuff like that. Most of the decent gaming level boards for most manufacturers, they are more than adequate for a typical overclock. You don't need to spend a ridiculous amount of money. And even ITX boards, decent ITX boards, they all have overclocking facilities. So, but ultimately what I suggest is that you do your research and understand what is it. There's only maybe 4 or 5 parameters that you need to understand how they work together. And once you understand it, you'll be like, oh, here's I can get tweak this, and then you become addicted to it. and then the only way to get the maximum out of your system is by actually doing it manually, because the presets, they usually rely on the worst case scenario, lowest common denominator.
And every component behaves differently. Just because somebody on some forum got a better performance from some part doesn't mean that you're going to get the same performance from the same part.
I can't believe we didn't mention that.
Yeah.
Pick quality parts. Your motherboard, that is your platform. If you you read reviews and it says this, it might be $20 motherboard. I don't care how good a deal it is. If you start seeing reviews that say there's some stability issues, then that's not what you want. Pick a good platform to start with, and then pick good memory that is going to work. Up there in the corner, and then HyperX, and then graphics cards. Again, pick good quality components. You'll find you'll get a better return from your system.
And as I mentioned, always do your research. Don't trust just one review site. Cross-refer it. Maybe do 2 or 3 key research places that you trust. Go there and be like, hey, here's the independent reviewer's opinion, because men lie, women lie, numbers don't. Jay-Z.
And we had a question down here.
So I recently built my own computer from NCIX 6 months ago with a 760 GTX, which is running very smooth. I was wondering, for the lasting appeal, I want to stick to 1080p gaming, how many years do you think I can keep with this?
That's an Eric question for sure.
That's a question for developers, actually. We don't know when they're going to actually come up with a gaming engine or something that's actually going to be fully utilizing and topping out on the performance on that system. But I think that will last you at least a good 3 years, 3 to 4 years.
And ironically, the new PC engines are going to be released more of now that consoles are out, the new generation, because unfortunately, very, very, very many titles recently have been simple console ports with a few tweaks just to make them run on the PC. So it's a 6-year-old technology adapted to a PC with slightly better graphics. Now that the benchmark for the lowest common denominator, which are the consoles, have been raised, it will actually spill over into the PC sector. Now, of course, there are PC exclusive titles that will always be pushing the envelope of your processor, but I would say that with a 760 you do have like 2 or 3 years of lifespan. And then if your system actually has a SLI capability, you can pop a second one in if you want.
Time for a couple quick ones.
Last two. I saw your hand before, so.
All right, I know this is kind of more of a console issue, but with newer games and better graphics, people are always saying like graphics will never get that much better. They're going to hit their peak sometime soon. How is that sort of affecting coming up with new graphics cards, new technologies, and that sort of thing?
Who do you think is responsible for graphics being super realistic?
There. I think there's one part of that is like the standard for resolution, right? Like in the past, we were fine with like 1024 by 800, and then now, like if you go on Steam server, everyone's running at 1080p. That's like the most popular resolution. In the future, we'll probably see people gaming on 4K, and that will be the norm, right? And then a lot of these game developers will have to optimize their engine, and then right now, like a graphics card doesn't really fully run the way it should for a 4K system, unless you're running like a couple of Titans together or a couple of 780s,
Right.
So I think as people adopt that technology, as 4K becomes more affordable, and gamers start to leverage onto that, we'll start to see more games be standardized on 4K, and then we can
Now, to go hand in hand with that, just raising the resolution is one part of the improving image quality. The other thing is actually having new DirectX standards being developed, which is pretty much the language in which all of the fancy effects are made in the game. So whenever a new generation comes out, that's okay. Imagine this, and like in 2006, in DirectX 9, Half-Life 2, water was like realistic. We compare it to like CS 1.6, right? Oh my God! So every time a new generation of DirectX comes out, this is when there is a big leap. Of course, it probably takes like a few months after the new DirectX came out for the developers to be like, okay, here, now we can actually build these extra effects into our new engines. But from the previews for the next generation of DirectX that I have seen, you'd be blown away, I would say. Because like even at this point, whatever DirectX 11 provides can be made really, really photorealistic, but then you have to pay to play if you actually want to have everything enabled. But then for the next generation of cards, let's say a mid-range card will be able to have photorealistic experience. And then generation after, it will be like stock.
Yeah. We have room. Time for one more. You know what? We haven't had a female question. Oh, we had one before. No, but that was her name of her PC. Anyway, that was a question for you. Yes, miss.
Do you have any good tips for people who want to make their first PC? Like any starter tips?
Super duper starter tips. Where should we get our courage from?
Research first. Do your research. Look at a few sites. Pick your parts. Stick with quality parts. Don't go for the cheapest. If you can't afford a good quality part, wait a little bit, like Ivan said, and till you can get your thing, till you find what you want. Figure out what monitor you want. You're going to play at 1080p. Pick your video card based on that as well. It doesn't have to have a whole lot of lights, to be cool. So
a good resource would be if you go to NCIX PC Facebook, we actually have a full community of gamers who that's what they, together with us, do all day. People come over and be like, hey, where do I begin? I don't know what I'm talking about. And we have quite a few people who actually will be like, hey, here's what you should get, here's what you should get from. And then if anything goes wrong, just go back up there and be like, hey, so this is not working. So there's that. Then, of course, there are independent sites that just provide build guides, but they will not provide the guidance if anything goes wrong or if anything, because 2 months after the guide has been published, stuff is kind of becoming obsolete-ish. So I would actually suggest going to NCIX PC Facebook and just asking the question.
Don't be afraid either, right?
I have a good piece of advice.
Any elitist that ever said they didn't break something is a liar.
Yeah.
I never broke something.
I've broken stuff. I admit it. One other thing that you can probably, to gain your get some experience, is to watch YouTube videos that do full build guides. I actually did two. I did one for the Bitfinex Prodigy with one of the designers of that case, which is, you'll probably see a few of these little cases out there. We did a build guide for that.
With handles.
Yep. and we also did another one, which was a midnight build for Vancouver. I had to get the system done at like 8 a.m. And I basically did it in the middle of the night, and I recorded the whole thing. So I'm kind of saying stuff. I'm exasperated, right? But I did that build. I did it very quickly, I think, and then you can see how it's done. Oh, that's pretty easy. That's not hard. And then you can just dive right into it once you have that confidence. Because if you don't have that confidence to kind of jump into it, you're going to make mistakes if you're not sure about what you want to do next. So watch videos, do the research, and I think these guys have given us a lot. Eric, you had something to add there?
Oh yeah, I just wanted to reiterate, do read the manual. And also, you might want to try building the system outside of the case first, test the component one at a time. It's easier to get your hands around and then see what's wrong. And after you verify that everything's working and you have no faulty parts or working fine, then you can start putting it into the case and then power it on that way.
Well, she's more likely to read the manual, so you're speaking to the right demographic.
All right.
Pro tip is before you actually make the build, put all the parts in front of you, get into the lotus pose and meditate. Imagine the whole system coming together in your mind. Like in those Jet Li movies, okay, like the hero, right? It's just you sit there and you can imagine how it comes together, and then you make it come true. It's an experience. You see, like it is a thing that we do.
I tried that and I fell asleep. I did it wrong.
I think we should give away some free stuff. The good free stuff. Okay, the free stuff is courtesy of Inwind. They're giving away these fantastic Rocker Mat limited edition mouse mats. You may have seen some of your compatriots back there sporting them because they got them at Vancouver. We also have these fantastic NVIDIA duffel style Diddy bags. They're military style, So these are fantastic. And we also have our grand prize, which is the Z87 HD3 gigabyte motherboard for your very first build. So someone will be able to start immediately.
I also got a few gift cards.
Oh, you have NCIX is also donating some prizes. Isn't that fantastic? Oh, we're missing some. One more ticket. You were asleep, weren't you? That's why you had no ticket. And by the way, thank you for listening.
Thank you for teaching us stuff.
No problem. Right. Thank you. The first winner has a ticket number, and I'm going to read the last 4 digits just to make sure. They're all the same. 0121. Yay! Congratulations. Thank you.
My girlfriend has one. It's very nice.
Pretty. It's purple, isn't it?
Purple like my swag is.
Ivan, can you draw the next ticket?
You want to give away one here?
169.
169. 0169.
Yeah, it's me.
It is?
Yes.
Are you serious? No way.
Wow.
Gift card.
Congrats.
Thank you.
If you sat in the front row, you might win something.
Amber.
Eric, come on. Let's draw for one of these bags.
Right. Oh, you
want to do a bag?
Yeah, do a bag.
Yeah, media bag. 0152.
152. 0152. Not here? Not here? Okay, redraw.
Well, there is an empty seat in the front row.
Uh-oh. Well, too late now. 0125.
0125. Whoa! What's with the front row?
Are you serious?
Oh.
Fact.
Okay. No.
You can't write it in.
Seriously. Wow. Congratulations. Such luck.
If anybody wants to win, there's an extra.
Such luck. All right. Let's give away another rocker mat here. These are fantastic mats. Okay. And the wiener is 0141. 0141. That you?
All right.
Congratulations, sir. Come on down.
It's a manly enough purple you can use it.
Thank you. Right. Let's keep drawing for rocker mats.
Another one? All right.
0207. 0207. 0207 going once. 0207 going twice. Sorry. 0116.
Hey,
Yeah. Whoa, no way. What's up with that? Oh.
Can
you use both at the same time?
Okay, let's do another NCIX gift card.
Put 2 or
NCIX gift card.
Gift card. I'm gonna get. If we get an audience member to pick it, then they can't blame us.
Just for Dad. We'll find a way.
0137.
137.
137. 0137. Oh my, what's going on?
I saw her lick her finger and was like,
Congratulations. Great. Who's the next winner? Let's do another, you want to do another bag? Or mouse mat? Mouse mat. Let's do another mouse mat. Yeah. One of you guys draw, please.
I better not draw myself for like I'm gonna get shot.
What do we got?
0216.
0216. Right on. We're moving back. We're moving back now.
no, he doesn't. 216?
0216. Congrats. Yeah, we'll toss that. Thank you. Okay. It's working, you know?
Yeah.
We have a fantastic NVIDIA duffel bag.
0203.
0203. Back there somewhere? 0203 going once. 0203 going twice.
I'll take it.
203.
Right, sorry. Right, how about you? What do we got?
0120.
0120.
Yeah.
Yeah!
Oh yeah!
Not the back.
Woo! We're slowly moving back. Congrats, man. Last rocker, Matt? Do we have any more gift cards?
Yep.
Okay.
3 more.
Let's do some more gift cards first. Ivan? Not in the front row, please.
201.
0201.
Just 201.
201? Okay. 201. Once. 201 twice. Sorry.
202. This is not rigged at all.
202 once. 202 twice. Sorry.
0153.
0153.
So 153.
All right.
Yeah. Somewhere near the back. Excellent. Some NCIX gift cards. Start building tomorrow or tonight. Open 24/7 on ncx.ca.
Oh, he's still got
That was something that I asked.
I keep going?
Yep. I got 2 more.
Yeah. Here, I'll grab one this time. It's got to be somebody in the back.
147.
147. 147 going once. 147 going twice. And sorry, 147, you lose.
That's okay, as long as we're here.
160.
160. 160 going once. 160 going twice. Sorry, 160. Sorry.
I think she's coming up.
160?
Went up now that the draw's
160? Is that you?
What? 160?
Almost.
We almost lost you there. Yay. Hello, Kitty.
She was distracted by Dr. Dreamy back there.
Oh, Mick Dreamy. Mick Dreamy. Thank you. Right. Let's keep drawing. We got 2 more sets of gift cards. 1 more set of gift cards from NCIX, your destination for PC DIY components. Great technology selection and service.
He's got good luck written on his face. He's going to pick a good one for somebody.
I read it.
204.
204 going once. 204 going twice. Sorry, 204. Sorry.
All right, you grab one out for us.
131.
131. Woohoo!
right.
Our water cooling custom loop man.
Now you can fix the mess.
Those will be good for new couplings and new pipe. All right. Okay. Our last rocker mat, and then we'll be giving away the Gigabyte motherboard, courtesy of Gigabyte Technology.
Gigabyte.
Gigabyte me? 0155. Yeah, near the back.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. Now, are you guys excited? We've got a motherboard here to start off your first build. Isn't that awesome? So we learned about PC DIY. We learned all the things we needed to jump in, and now we get to get our first board.
All right. You want to?
Let a girl pick.
What?
Let a girl pick. I'm not a girl.
A girl pick?
Girl pick?
Who wants to pick it?
All right. No pressure. No pressure. Someone's build is in your hands.
142.
142. 0142. Oh, is that you?
Stacked.
Yeah! Woo! Congratulations. Wow, that's fantastic. That's great. Now you remember that couples thing that I talked about? You can do it with larger size cases too, okay? Oh, that wraps up our giveaway. I'd like to thank Eric Chen, all the way from San Jose, for coming up to help us out.
Thanks, guys.
And Ivan from NCIX PC as well. And of course, our senior hardware editor from Futurelooks.com. Make sure you visit that site, click stuff, and read. Eric Garay. Thank you so much. We'll see
Will the real PC gamers please stand up?
Thank you for being here. Thank you.